No, to learn more stuff, you actually just need to read it once, and then you have to try your best to get it out of your brain. And the second big one in the research is spaced repetition.
What tips and tricks have you learned about how to learn better?
Yeah. So essentially, the main one is that we learn by testing ourselves rather than by consuming more stuff. Which is a bit counterintuitive. Like when it comes to if we think about like studying, and then we can kind of broaden it out. Like if it comes to studying, we think that to learn more stuff, I need to get more information into my brain. But what all the evidence says is that no, to learn more stuff, you actually just need to read it once, and then you have to try your best to get it out of your brain. And that feels hard, and it feels tough, and it feels like, oh, I'm an idiot, I don't know enough. But that like desirable difficulty is what allegedly creates the neuronal connections in our brain to make us actually learn something. And so it's similar to working out, like progressive overload. When it's heavy and when it feels hard is when your muscles are actually growing because you've got the stimulus for growth. Equally, when it comes to learning anything, when it feels hard is when there is a stimulus for the neurons to grow, or words to that effect. And so when it comes to studying, if anyone is sort of listening to this, has exams coming up, and they are worried about their grades, the answer is that they're just not testing themselves enough. The more you test yourself, the better grades you'll get. And this therefore applies also to every other thing that we're trying to learn. So, if I was learning how to play You've Got a Friend in Me on the guitar the other day. And if I'm just playing through the first two verses of it that I know already, I'm not learning anything. But as soon as I try doing the thing that feels hard, at that point, it's like the harder it feels, the more I'm learning. And then we sleep, and then the connections get solidified. So it's that's kind of the main concept. Basically, test yourself more, whatever that thing is. And the second big one in the research is spaced repetition. That anything we learn, whether it's a fact for an exam or a song on the guitar, our memory for it will exponentially decay over time. And the way to make it go into a long-term memory, whatever the skill is to interrupt the forgetting curve at spaced intervals. So maybe you would practice the song on day 1, you'd practice it again on day 2, then on day 5, then on day 25, and then on day 105. And as the intervals lengthen, that is the sort of thing that gets this how to play the song or this fact about medicine or whatever into a long-term memory. And most things around learning can basically be summed up by those two things: active recall, i.e. test yourself, and spaced repetition, i.e. space it out over time.
Interesting. People are really fascinated by productivity, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
I think I heard you say about like when you put the word productivity in your content, it seems to perform better.
Yeah, I often think about this. Like, so to me, productivity, I think to a lot of people, productivity just means efficiency and creating economic output. The way that I define productivity is just kind of using my time well and working on things that are meaningful to me and optimizing for happiness. And so to me, this conversation is productive. Hanging out with friends is productive. I was playing PlayStation last night for a couple of hours. That to me was productive because I was like intentionally doing it because I wanted to take a break from writing. It's when I feel I feel unproductive when I know there is something I want to do and I am not doing the thing because I'm scrolling Instagram. That to me is unproductive.
You're not being intentional with your time.
Exactly, yeah. But I think on the internet these days, people use productive as economic output, and the whole like, oh, I want to be more productive. It's I think partly it's a
virtue signaling thing to some degree as well.
Yeah. Partly it's a virtue signaling thing. I think partly it's also like a self-flagellating thing in a way, whereby I often see comments on my videos where it's like, oh, productive day in my life, which I'm kind of doing tongue in cheek just because it's funny, where people are like, oh my God, I watch these videos just to make myself feel bad. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. This is mostly a joke. Like, I hope you realize this, but also it's like that's kind of sad that comment has got so many upvotes. Where I feel like such a waste man when I watch one of Ali Abdaal's videos, and I think there is that like perverse sense of people getting pleasure out of the story they're telling themselves that they are non-productive or that they are a chronic procrastinator, and to see someone who is on the surface seemingly so productive makes you kind of feel bad about yourself. I wonder if it's similar to like, if I look at my Instagram Explore page, about a year ago, it used to be bikini models. These days, it's dudes with six-pack abs. And I look at that, and there is a part of me that gets pleasure out of like flagellating myself and that like, why don't I look like that yet? And I wonder to what extent that's like a thing in the world of productivity.
That is fascinating. Because, I mean, that would be driven by the antithesis of that, that's got to be driven by a culture where productivity and I'm getting so much done, so I'm going to be successful and rich and a millionaire. And I'm in stealth mode building this massive business and I've been up all night. Look at me, it's 4 a.m. and I'm still working.
Yep.
That's driving one end of the spectrum, which is making productivity and being productive an aspiration for this generation.
Yep.
And on the other end, that's why, again, the desire to be productive is so high and your videos do so well on that topic. And then you have the counter movement, as you always do, where it's like, I'm such a procrastinator. And then all the memes, which bang just as hard because there's been this desire created in culture to be, super productive. Or as it relates to like weight and fitness, like everyone wants to look so good. And then the memes of people sat there with a pot noodle on their belly, like resting, like with their like running shoes on will also bang just as hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a very relevant thing in our culture, which is quite strange, that this incessant desire to be productive. I think there is a rise in counterculture, which is about being okay with not being productive.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm having to pepper that into my videos a lot more these days.
Nice.
Because I kind of thought it was so obvious that it doesn't need to be stated that obviously, don't seek economic output and productivity at the expense of other things that are more important, like health and relationships. But clearly that's not a thing that is obvious. And so I'm now having to caveat a lot of my productivity advice with like, look guys, let's just define productivity as, meaning and fulfillment and stuff rather than pure economic output.
And it's okay to be intentional and say, I don't want to do anything today. If that was your intention, I want to just do fuck all. And I think that's the nuance that's required in all of that.